Hey guys, Cami is for the original, Season 3, Episode 5, The Axeman's Letter, and holy shit, what a great episode this was. I mean, just wow, this was an amazing episode. They put the flashbacks to such good use in this episode, and there was so much great stuff, especially the ending of this episode. I don't know what's going to happen the rest of the season after the ending of this episode, because it's going to get insane. Let's just get into it. Of course, as always, there's a lot to talk about, and I really loved everything that happened. By far best episode of the season. I know that's going to change, because every episode I say that, but really, this is just a show that gets better and better with every episode, and I love that. And like I told you guys, last week's episode was the start of this season, and this week's episode very much proves that, just from this episode, so let's just get into it. We use a lot of flashbacks in this episode, but it's something that we need to see, because we see a lot of Klaus and Aurora together. We start back in the year 1002, basically, and, Rebecca sits dawdling with Aurora. Klaus says he never meant to let her in. We see them share a first kiss, and then we see them again together later, and he says there's a lighter. He talks about how she knows their hungers and how they hunt, feed, and kill. And he says he doesn't know what they are since they are the first of their kind and it has no name. Probably why they're called the originals, because they are the original of their kind. He sees Aurora crying in a field, drops off the letter to her that says he loves her, and Aurora still has that letter today. She says she tells someone that she loved him, then it crumbled to dust. She hands the note to be delivered with her special instruction, and we really get a sense of what Aurora's real plans in this episode, which I definitely love seeing. And Klaus and Elijah talk about how each of their first sire wants to kill each of them. And it's interesting that that Elijah's sire wants to kill Klaus, and Klaus's sire wants to kill Elijah. It's not the other way around. However, I do feel that Tristian and Lucien, like I said, are still working together. I really do feel that's what's going on. And especially what Aurora does in this episode, I definitely think that all three of them are working together. So a dead girl is in their compound with a note in her hand. It's a poem that tells Klaus, "Come find me before I find you." And Klaus says Aurora was once a better poet, and Elijah asks why he's so eager to go find her, and says he hasn't said her name in 1,000 years. And Elijah tells him that when their mom let it go his red door memories, he saw a memory, and he says Aurora was there. And Klaus doesn't want to hear about it. You can tell right away he wants nothing to do with Aurora. Clearly there's a lot that's happened between them, and he doesn't want anything to do with her, and says they have problems here and now, and they can kill the woman together to end the mind games forever, and that's what he wants to do. He doesn't want to make amends with Aurora. He wants to kill Aurora because apparently she inflicts this emotion in him, which is really interesting, definitely. So Cami talks to Vincent, and we get a lot more scenes with Cami, the detective, Detective Will, and Vincent. So Cami talks to Vincent and says she thinks it's odd that Nola put on a serial killer festival when a real serial killer is on the loose. And he tells her about the legend of the Axeman. Now, if you've seen American Horror Story Coven, you know the story. You know how the Axeman love jazz music, and how anyone that didn't kill jazz music, he would kill them. And she asks if this is a witch holiday, and she says that means the witches are prayed for the killer. And basically, Lucien then lurks nearby. They follow him, and Elijah asks Klaus how he will find her, and he says she'll leave a mark since it's her favorite game. And we see Klaus and Aurora back in bed back 1,000 years ago. And this is probably one of the most important scenes of the episode, because it pretty much sums up everything wrong with Klaus and Aurora, and why these two can theoretically basically never be together. And basically she tells him to make her like him. He says she doesn't know what she asks, and she says that they would not have to hide their love. She says she would be free and they could be together with no boundaries. He tells her she's perfect as she is, and you can tell that he just doesn't have it in his heart to sire her. He doesn't want to put her through that, because he knows what that's going to do to her. When you're sired, yes, you live forever, but you have a craving for blood. You have to do whatever you can to survive. I mean, it's not the easiest thing to do, and he really doesn't want to do that to her. So Klaus spots a bottle of perfume. Then Klaus enters the perfumery, and Aurora's there and says she knew he would find her, and she calls him sweet love. And he gives her this look like, I don't give a fuck what you want. I want to hear what you're gonna say, and then I'm gonna kill you. That's the look he gives her. He doesn't want to hear her story. Like, he doesn't want to really talk to her at all, and it's really interesting, definitely. And whoever plays Aurora, awesome performance, I have to say. She really did a great job. And finally, after 2 episodes, we see Davina again. It's taken us 2 episodes, and I understand why we couldn't really focus on her because we had so much going on with her stuff. But now we actually can focus on her. And I was thinking she was gonna get, uh, what the fuck's her name? I can't think of her name right now. You know who I'm talking about there. Freya. She was gonna get Freya to help her. But no, Haley and Jackson help her. She talks with Haley and Jackson and dismisses some witches who are annoying him, and she thanks them for coming, and Haley says they have no choice and are pretty much her slaves, and Jackson asks what he wants. She says it's her first cadeau and says she needs respect at this public event. She says she's worried it may not go well. She says one of the victim's son vowed to erase him, and Haley asks if she wants them to be bodyguards, and Jackson tells her to be with Davina while he works the crowd. He doesn't really want anything to do with this, because, this was all Haley's doing. This is all something that Davina approached Haley about, and he doesn't really want to be involved. So, and it's understandable. I mean, why would you want to be involved in something like that? So Aurora says it feels like yesterday that she last saw him, and he says if yesterday was the apocalypse, again, he doesn't really want to see her. She says she has a secret with Elijah, and he thinks she slept with him. That's what he's thinking she's going to tell him. But that's not at all what happened. She says the witches her celebrate could do, and it reminds her the gift that they shared. So we see her crying and freaking out back in the day. It's her birthday, and she cries, then says her mother died giving birth to her. She says it makes her cursed and broken. She calls herself an abomination, and Klaus says that she's not alone. She's basically making him feel like shit, making, her feel like she's, has all these problems, when he really has all the problems, because he says he's done something that he's never told anyone. He says it will break Rebecca's heart, and his brothers would hate him for it, and he says that he killed his mother in a fit of rage. He says she birthed him once the baby, once this creature. He says he killed her and blamed their father. He says and of course we knew about this. He says she's not as broken as him no matter what. She says he tries to respect her, and all he can see is that they're the same. And she says, let us share this gift. She says she will hold his shame and he can hold her. She says they will never speak these shames again and they won't have any power, so they won't have any power them. But he does not want to have to hear what she has to say. And she asks for another gift for her birthday. He says he'd give her anything, and she again asks to make me like you. And again, he doesn't do that. So he tells her he forgot about her and asks if she's there to remind him. She says she's there to protect her sire, but since he refused her, she's there to protect her true sire, then asks where the hell is Rebecca. So we realize that Rebecca is actually the one that sired her, and that's why she's actually back. So Elijah then goes to see Tristan. Obviously, they pretty much think that Tristan is the one committing these murders, and he hands him a heart in a jar. Holy shit. And he says Tristan's assistant was less than accommodating. And of course, Elijah, was forced to join the Strix. He's basically joined the Strix now. It seems he's working for Tristan, and very interesting stuff here. So he tells Tristan he's keeping secrets from him. He says he thinks Klaus is with Aurora now and says that's a volatile combination. He says wherever he goes, his sister follows. And he says Rory fell into a dark period and he left her in careful care. Tristan says he knows she's not there because she would come to him first, and Elijah tells him he wouldn't be so sure of that. He leaves the poem that Aurora left at their house with him, and Cami and Vincent then stalk Lucien from a distance, and she calls him a charismatic killer. And he says he was drawn to Eva's darkness, and she's drawn to Klaus's. And I do agree with that. I mean, the love that Vincent had for Eva, Cami clearly does have for Klaus, and she doesn't really understand that yet. So Lucien grabs up Cami and zips away. He throws her down on the ground, says he's been dying to get her alone, picks up her phone, says he was cleared by the real cops, but she's still hounding him. She says she reads people and he's not hard to read. He says this thing between them needs to reach a conclusion. She says if he hurts her, Klaus won't react well. And I do agree with that. Obviously, Klaus is not going to be, happy if Lucien does anything to her. Klaus will just go after him right away. And I definitely thought that was a very intense scene. Definitely a very good stuff there. He says she doesn't know anyone like him and what he's capable of. Then says she's about to find out. He zips away. She hears noise. There's a dying man with his face cut open in the alley. Keep in mind, guys, this show is a network show. This show is not a cable show. But the fact they actually showed that was crazy. She runs to help him, and there's no doubting that Lucien is responsible for this. I mean, the way that he just zipped away like that, I'm pretty sure that he probably was responsible for that. Tristan was probably too, but I definitely feel like these two are working hand in hand. So Klaus tells Aurora that her sire has moved on and, that Rebecca's gone, that she's not there. He says Rebecca was mistaken, you never trust her. And we see her back in the day that Aurora staged a suicide scene, and Rebecca basically gave her blood to bring her back. I mean, that's how despicable Aurora was, and that's how much she wanted this to happen, and it really shows how evil Aurora really is. As much as she loved Klaus, it really was just so he could turn her into, what she wanted to be. And Rebecca did it because Rebecca just is that compassionate. I don't think Rebecca is stupid. I know people might say, oh, Rebecca's stupid for it, but I don't think Rebecca is, because I think she just saw someone hurting, and she didn't want them to suffer. So Rebecca asks why she would do this. She says Tristian forbade her to see Klaus anymore. And Rebecca says this pain will pass, but Aurora says her mind is a demon that haunts her. She tells Rebecca that she and her family heal and are never sick, but Rebecca says they have their own torments. Aurora says these torments don't scare her. She wants to be like them. She admires them even. Rebecca says they are cursed, and Aurora says their curse is nothing compared to hers. And she tells Rebecca to go and says she wants to sleep. Rebecca calls her sweet girl, then goes. And again, you can tell that Aurora's just trying to make her feel guilty. And after she leaves, Aurora stepped to the window and out of it. And so she got what she wanted. And now she tells Klaus that the night smelled of lavender and she could see the garden. She says that scent was the last thing she remembered as a human. That was the last time she remembered anything. And that was definitely a very interesting scene. And again, really shows the despicable ways of Aurora. So a goat is then brought as an offering to Davina. It turns out that they all brought animals, and she steps away from the proceeding. And I really like the scene between Haley and Davina. Really good stuff here. Haley asks her if she's not a fan of ghosts. She says she loves them and hates to sacrifice them and wishes someone would give her a gift card. She says she hates this scarf and only wore it because Josephine wore one. Haley hands her a beer. Haley says she didn't like hurting those from the coven, knows Davina didn't like it either. And Haley advises her based on her experience leading the wolves. She says, don't be who they want, be who she is, and show that to them. And I really do agree with Haley. I mean, don't be someone you're not just to help, just, for the satisfaction of other people. Just be yourself, and I thought that was really great advice, and show that to them. Davina's someone that really doesn't know what to do right now. She has all this power, but just doesn't really know what to do, and she takes the scarf off of her. Davina smiles, and I like that we're actually seeing someone helping Davina. It really seemed like Davina wasn't going to get any help here. That Marcel was going to give her advice, and that was it. But we actually did see Haley have some compassion, and even though she is forced to help out Davina, she understands that Davina kind of is just lost right now, and I really like that scene, I have to say. It's one of the reasons why I really like Haley and Davina's characters. So Elijah comes to see Marcel and says Tristian was shaken and he's not easily shaken. He says he's working with someone and it's not Aurora. And Marcel says now he wants his help. And Elijah reminds him that he's Strix too, that he's working for Strix. And obviously Marcel really doesn't want to work with Elijah because Elijah was such a dick to him. He wasn't treating him in a good way at all, and now he actually wants his help. And I can understand why Marcel is really upset about it. But Marcel says he'll put some people on Tristian, see what they find out, and, if you remember, Marcel is working for the Strix, but he's kind of doing it as a spy. He doesn't really want to work for the Strix, but he's doing it to just see what Tristian is hiding, because he knows that Tristian has some sort of angle, and he doesn't know what it is. So Aurora flirts with Klaus, who calls her a snake. She reminds him how much they like harming each other. We see the vampire Aurora approach Klaus, who asks what she's done, and you can tell that Klaus is heartbroken by what she's done, because he basically realizes that she just did this because, she says he is equal now, they can always be together. She grabs him, bites his lip when she kisses him, he slams her against the wall and kisses her, he doesn't have to hold back now, and I can understand that Aurora really wanted to be with Klaus, but I really see that she just did all of this for her satisfaction, and now Aurora asks if he remembers how it was to be with someone as powerful and tormented and cursed as he was. He says yes, and Aurora says look him in the eye and tell him he hasn't thought about her every day, and this is just a really powerful scene. She says she came for him after 1,000 years of trying to forget him. She says she's there for him. She kisses him. He kisses back. And you're not sure what's going to happen here. If they're going to rekindle their love or if he's just going to kill her like that. I really don't know what's going to happen here. So Cami tells Vincent that there's nothing she can't do. He says you can't use cops to take down a vampire. She says there's a way to use magic without actually doing it. They can find ways. And the detective and basically Will asks if she just happened to find another victim. And Vincent says he got there and she was trying to save the guy, and the cop says that she's part of the crime scenes and implies that she's involved. He still thinks that she's involved in this, and he walks away, and I can understand why. I mean, most of her friends are vampires, werewolves that are pretty capable of doing this, and I can understand if he thinks that she's involved with this. So you can tell that Will is still kind of on to her. So, basically, Jackson walks through the crowd, hears some men chanting. They have a doll that looks like an effing G of Davina. Jackson stops him, drags the ringleader away. Klaus slams Aurora against the wall, says they could have been a great love story. She says he left without telling her. Rebecca and the others get word of that news of them has leaked, and they know their father will come for them. Klaus asks Aurora to come with him. She says she won't go on the run like a dog. She says she thought she loved him, but now she knows he's a cruel, pathetic wretch unworthy of anyone's love. She says his own mother turned against him and reminds him he killed his mother. And she says there's no hope for him. He says she's breaking his heart and swore never to speak of that. She says she owes him nothing and could never love him. And with tears in his eyes, Klaus turns his back on her. And it's just, you really see why Klaus hated her so much, because she basically made him feel like shit. She showed, she made him think about things that he really didn't want to face. And Klaus, I think, really did love Aurora, but she, I don't think, ever really loved him. I think she was only in love with Klaus because she wanted to be turned into a vampire. That's all she really wanted. She wanted to be sired. She knew that there was a family out there that could do that for her, and that's why she got close to them. And I really feel that's what this was all about. And it's really sad because they could have had a great future together. They could have been something really great, and unfortunately, Aurora just completely shut that down. She didn't give Klaus, the satisfaction that he wanted, while he clearly did love her. It's just really sad stuff overall. This could have been someone that really helped out Klaus in the end, but in the end, she didn't help him at all. So he says she's breaking his heart and swore never to speak of that. She says that I just read that. So now we see that Klaus says she should count herself lucky since no one who has talked to him that way has lived. She says she did not architect their heartbreak. She says Elijah came to her moments before then. She says Elijah told her that this curse is not hers to bear and says that's not their blood. And she says thinks about Klaus that he never will. And Elijah wants to know what secret she's keeping from him that he doesn't know. And he asks what Klaus said to her and compels her to tell him she did. Klaus is horrified, she told him. She says she couldn't stop herself from telling him. We see Elijah stunned to learn, and she literally tells Elijah that Klaus killed their mother, then lied to them all. And Aurora says she still loves him, but Elijah compelled her to see Klaus as the monster that he is. And, that is insane. I mean, the fact that she actually did that, again, shows how despicable she really is. And now she tells Klaus when he came to her moments later, she couldn't say yes because of the compulsion. She says she thinks it was Elijah's first experience with compulsion. He did not undo it. Klaus says that that's Elijah's secret. She says you made him suffer the loss of his mother, and this was his revenge. And, it really makes sense why Elijah, has the hatred for Klaus and doesn't trust Klaus like he does, mainly because of Aurora. It's really all Aurora's fault. And Jackson takes the ringleader before Davina, and basically, you can see that he is defiant. Van's defiant, but Davina says he tried to murder a regent, and Jackson hands her the doll. Davina tells him to not kill him. It makes the victim tell the truth. She tells him that his mother attacked her, and, was prepared to start a witch war, and Van asks if she thinks they're better off with her. She says she does. She says the old ways don't work anymore, and says he can go and stay, and they can change things. And you can tell that she is willing to help them out. She's trying to tell them, I'm going to help you out, I'm going to be, and she's taking Haley's advice. She's not going to let them she's not going to let them be who they want her to be. She's going to be who she wants to be, and I love that. So Elijah leaves Klaus a message. Marcel shows up, then says Tristian went to a place called Candid Royal and never came out. He says there are secret passages, and he went to a place owned by Lucien. And they conclude that Lucien and Tristian have been working together from the start. And yes, that is exactly what I want them to think. I know that's what's going on. I know they've been working together. And Aurora says she killed the seer for showing her that her sire and all the Michelsons were destroyed. She says she will change his future and asks him who he thought would kill him among his family, and says it will be the one closest to him, meaning Elijah. And yes, if Klaus and Elijah ever die in the show, I believe they're going to kill each other. That's really how I feel this show is going to end, that Klaus and Elijah are probably going to kill each other. And Haley wishes Davina happy witch day. Davina thanks her and says she was right. She says she's been trying to control too much as Regin, and she doesn't want to be that person anymore. She says she asked the ancestors for the magic to lift her curse, and they grant it since it's could do. She blows out the candle, tells Haley she's free, would rather have her as a friend, and Haley smiles at her, and it's a really great scene. You really see how much Haley's done for her. I definitely really love that. So Vincent tells Cami that a lot of her artifacts come from Treme witches. He says in the wrong hands, this could destroy the city, and basically Will comes and says he's taking all of these things. He says the only prince and the victim are hers, and her brother was a mass murderer. He arrests her for the murders, and basically she's again been framed by Tristian and Lucien. They framed her for this, so that's pretty crazy that that's happened. So Aurora tells Klaus she needs to think about all this. She says to go ask Elijah for himself. He presses her against the wall. She says once he finds the truth from Elijah, come find her, since he'll know who's really on his side. And basically, again, she's trying to turn these brothers against her. You can just tell that is what they are trying to do. And what we get at the end of this episode is truly insane. I mean, last scene between Elijah and Klaus was crazy. Elijah tells Klaus it's convenient she comes to tell this truth just when they need to be most untied. And Klaus calls him the greatest traitor of his life. They fight, because, Klaus doesn't know about any of this. Klaus tells Elijah he set his course, but Elijah says he protected his family, says Aurora was a lunatic, and his father was after them. And this is all true. Aurora was crazy, and that's why this happened. Elijah says, even knowing all of his despicable deeds, he alone stood by him. Klaus says Elijah's betrayal was the source of what he became. Elijah fights him off and says he's carried him for centuries and is done. And I love what Elijah's trying to say here. He's always tried to protect his brother. He's always done what's in his brother's best interest. And now he's done. He says if he wants to fight, so be it. And that is how the episode ends. And Aurora successfully completed her mission. I really feel Aurora's, doing here was to turn these brothers against you and basically make Klaus think that his brother's out to kill him, which he's not. Elijah's not out to kill him. In fact, he's trying to help out Klaus. And, it really sucks, but unfortunately, because of Aurora's talking and because of Klaus not really knowing who to trust, he trusted Aurora over Elijah, and that's going to be his downfall. I mean, really interesting stuff to think about in this episode. Especially now that we know that Julian and Tristian are most likely working together. This is going to get very interesting to see what happens here, because I think definitely this is something that will be brought up again. It's something that is definitely we need to talk about, and I can't wait to see what happens with that, because clearly they are working together, and I think Aurora is working right with them. I mean, they clearly told Aurora what to do. She did not have this agenda. They told her what to do. They told her you need to get these two to turn against each other, and that's exactly what she did. So what's going to happen between Elijah and Klaus now? I mean, things are going to be insane between them. They clearly hate each other now. Klaus pretty much thinks that Elijah betrayed him when it's the complete opposite. Aurora basically told Elijah everything, and he was forced to compel her to think that Klaus was this violent person, basically compelled her that way. So there was, it's both of their faults, but it's mainly Aurora's, and I really think it's crazy what Aurora's doing. Klaus just doesn't see the malicious side of Aurora because she's very good seducing him and making him feel guilty. And that's why he doesn't want to see her, because she gives him that guilt. She makes him think things he doesn't want to feel, and I really felt bad for Klaus because that really, really sad, I have to say. But let's talk about what's going to happen with Cami, because Cami has now been framed for all these murders. And again, I can understand why Will thinks she's connected to it. Is she obviously responsible? No. It's clear that Julian and Tristian are the ones that Lucien and Tristian. I don't know what Julian is. Julian is from the Vampire Diaries. I don't know why I'm saying that. By the way, guys, so much more interesting than the Vampire Diaries. Not that I don't like what's going on in the Vampire Diaries, but this is so much more interesting. I mean, what's going on with Valerie, Stefan, and Caroline is just so been there, done that, and this is so not. This is not a love triangle at all. Nothing between this screams love triangle. Aurora is simply manipulating Klaus into thinking his brother's trying to kill him, or would you rather have someone that still is in love with Stefan and is dating someone? I mean, how much can you do with that? This is so much more interesting, and I love the way the originals do that. They always make the story so much more gothic and brutal, and that's why the original is just so much better. I love that. Davina, I love the advice that Haley gave to Davina. I think that's fantastic. Hopefully she's going to be able to convince, all the people that are against her to work with her. Hopefully this works out well. I don't know if it's going to work out, though. We'll have to see. Marcel and Elijah looks like they're working together, and I'm pretty sure Elijah would have told Klaus what's going on, but now that they're against each other, Elijah's not, doesn't, I don't think he even cares about Klaus right now, because Klaus just isn't going to listen to him. He's realizing that he's going to listen to Aurora's word over his, so what's the point? There's no point having Klaus listen to him if he knows he's not going to, so definitely, unfortunately, it did not work well for Elijah at all. Klaus is not going to listen to him, unfortunately, which really sucks. I wish that Klaus would listen to him, but it seems that he's not going to. Rebecca's going to get involved with this at some point because she's the one that sired Aurora. She's the one that essentially is the problem here. And it's not Rebecca's fault because she just felt bad for Aurora, and Aurora made her feel like she had all this pain going through her, and Rebecca felt she needed to put a stop to it. I mean, Rebecca's just a kind soul in that way. And she couldn't, she wanted to help out Aurora, and they eventually got screwed over by Aurora, and I think it's a very interesting story. It's made things so much more interesting this season, and I love that. I think it's fantastic what's going on there. Let's talk about the Strix as well. Elijah seems to be working with the Strix, while Marcel seems to be in the Strix, but they're both spies, and it's very interesting to see what's going to happen with that. It does look like next week Rebecca is going to come into the picture. And also it looks like we're going to focus a lot more on Freya next week. They're going to be very concerned about Freya, and we'll have to see what happens with that. That definitely is going to be, very interesting. We'll have to see what they do with that whole storyline. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. This was by far the best episode of the season. I know I didn't have as much to say about it as other episodes, but that's because most of this episode was Klaus and Aurora in this room, recounting flashbacks, which I thought was very well done. I loved it. Amazing episode. I can't wait. I can't wait for next week's episode. That's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys in the next video, which will actually be, it'll be for one of two things. It'll either be for the series premiere Master of None, or it will be for the series premiere Flesh and Bone. I'm probably going to watch that early because I do want to give you guys a review for that, and I'm not reviewing that weekly because they're putting all 8 episodes out early, so I'm going to review them that way, and I will see you guys for one of those reviews. I don't know which one it'll be for, but I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.